Exactly, Lena and Andrew. Good evening. That's right. Other flight attendants are working at WestJet, working for Transat, who also, we understand, do not get paid for the work they do on the ground, the pre-safety checks, the deboarding. They also not getting paid. And before this massive, you could probably call it historic strike by the flight attendants with Air Canada, they have really set the precedent now for future talks. And so we do understand that, potentially, this unpaid work on the ground, it could be over. We haven't seen the actual finished deal yet, but it could follow suit with other airlines that do pay for the groundwork. Delta Airlines offered it up to their flight attendants who are not unionized. In 2022, American Airlines started offering that. Last year, Porter Airlines also pays a portion of their hourly wage while they're on the ground. Now, we do also understand that Patty Hajdu announced over the weekend they were going to be doing a probe to look at these allegations of this unpaid work on the ground. And we spoke with employment lawyer Aaron Coos about that probe and how it could benefit flight attendants in other airlines. We also heard from Executive Director from Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives, Peggy Nash, talking about the public support for flight attendants, about those unpaid work on the ground may have really given them the leverage they needed to get this deal done. Here's what both had to say.
Of course, we don't know what the content of the deal is, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the ratification. We only know what the parties have said publicly and what the government has said publicly, which interestingly rather includes an inquiry into the concept of unpaid work. I think in terms of looking at what this might mean for future negotiations, it's going to depend on whether, first of all, how this inquiry goes. It may not be necessary for employees of other airlines to go on strike to get time for this work on the ground, this work on the flight before they take off. If there is, in fact, a federal inquiry that says this is inappropriate and can't go on any longer.
The union was very focused on their two main issues of wages and pay for ground work. And their members were clearly educated and united behind them and firm in their resolve. And I think what also helped the union is that for the traveling public, there's a lot of frustration for people who feel that generally their experience in air travel has not been that great. So I think a lot of sympathy for the people who work for the airline. And, it just seemed that maybe the company was relying on the government coming in and trying to force people back to work through an arbitration. And again, I think that misread the situation very badly.
There's also some legal fallout after all this. We also understand that some passengers are filing a class action lawsuit against Air Canada about how they dealt with the flight cancellations and rebookings. And we also understand there are some class action lawsuits against CUPE over defying that back-to-work order, which was implemented by Minister of Jobs Patty Hajdu over the weekend. And so we're going to see what happens with those two. But knowing just how the legal system works could take a while for those. Back to you.